welcome, Sanjay, to our very first episode of Angles by Construction World. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Falguni.
So, Sanjay, I'm going to start right from the beginning, as they say. Why architecture? What prompted you to take up architecture?
I was really good at drawing and I wanted to be an artist. And then in 9th standard, I happened to read the book Fountainhead. That book just changed my whole perspective and gave me this whole thing that, art is not going to affect people. Architecture will affect people. It's the only art that will actually change human behavior. Something emerges from the site, responds to the site. So all of that, after reading that book, it was like I have to do architecture. It was that clear.
So you started your journey with Hafiz. What were those days like? What were your learnings like in those?
Oh, what a learning. Hafiz taught me how to draw. He sent me to sites knowing fully well that I don't know anything. He said, you go there and you'll learn. As an 18-year-old kid, when somebody gives you that kind of confidence or that kind of a free hand to just go ahead and do everything, it's amazing. The speed at which that office worked, the speed at which Hafiz thought and went after the thing, it was crazy. So in that short span of 3 months, been to sites, done working drawings, hotel, housing complex, all of this. Sketching I find is easiest, fastest way to get your thoughts on paper. A lot of people may disagree who have grown up working straight on software. But then let's do some comparisons, okay? Now let's say you have a large site. So you have a large site, the drawing is that big. The largest computer screen available is of this size. So every time you got to pan. And when you pan, you're not getting the whole picture. But when you have that drawing printed on scale and is that large, you're just looking at the whole thing and you're seeing everything.
Does the younger generation follow through with this, or are they completely comfortable with
No, unfortunately they don't. I keep trying to tell people that, it is really important to sketch, but I don't see a lot of people doing it yet.
And then you started your own firm.
I started my own firm in 1992 after having worked 5 years through college with Hafiz and 4.5 years after that.
It's a very sweeping question, but what are the biggest challenges that you saw then, in say a pre-digital era, in a software era, and today? How do you compare and contrast the challenges that you all faced earlier and now?
So I would say that in the pre-digital era, to do something very abstract was very difficult. So software obviously makes all of that far more easy. Any kind of complex geometry that you do, software makes it very easy because there's so many softwares.
What's your view on materials then and materials now? What's your process of material selection?
There's a sea change. There's no comparison. At that time, it was literally like paint. Okay, that's paint. Nobody looked at different paints. It was just different color because that's the only paint available.
Right.
So that's it. The palette was this much as compared to today. The palette is it's beyond this also in comparison. So the palette of materials has gone up by literally more than 1,000. That's the kind of extent.
So you've done so many projects, Sanjay, abroad. What are your learnings about what we do here? A compare and contrast with what's happening abroad in terms of technique, software, treatment. What is the learning both ways for you? From here to there and from there to here?
It's very easy to find someone to do what you want to do internationally. And in most cases, there is a single contractor who would be able to do anything and everything that you want them to do. And it's all decided on day one. In India, it's very different that, X will not be able to do beyond this. So there is a civil contractor separate, there is an interior finishing contractor separate, there is a plumbing contractor separate, there is electrical contractor separate. There also is there, but it's more under one roof and it's one integrated thing, and they make sure that everything happens in the correct sequence.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of extra work that is done in India.
Why aren't we able to offer all these services under one roof? Is it a problem of scale?
Yes, it is a problem of scale. In fact, I was going to come to that we don't have enough skill centers. Although I know of people who are actually funding it on their own and helping educate. But it's not there on a large scale the way it is required. The amount of building that is happening in India right now, or what will happen in the next 10 years, would not have happened in the last 30 years. That's the kind of growth that India is witnessing. With this kind of growth, where are the people? I mean, do you think that like overnight you're going to get 3 times the amount of contractors and 3 times the amount of laborers and 3 times the amount of everything? It's just not possible. So who is training these laborers? They're picking up people from villages, bringing them and saying they'll give you work. They're all daily wage. Nobody is training them.
You know, you've done projects in Ranchi, one in Nasik, the hotel in Rajasthan, the Ras. What's your understanding of design sensibilities in different parts of the country?
So I think clients are pretty much now at par. Whether you have a Bombay client or you have a Ranchi client or an Indore client, they all know and aware of what is happening. Social media today is so easy and everybody's on it and everybody knows what's happening. So that way there's no difference. In the contractors, I think there is a huge amount of difference. You know, so if you have a contractor in Rajasthan, for example, they are far more aware and far more skilled as compared to somebody you may find in Calcutta.
How difficult or easy is it to be creative within a budget?
Oh, it's not at all difficult to be creative within a budget. We actually tell every client, you let us know the budget before, so we then plan accordingly. And so you know that, okay, when the budget is only this limited amount, then you have to work with materials that are simpler and within that budget. But it's not, it is never a restriction on creativity.
If you were to flip it the other way around, that there is no budget, and
I think that is more difficult. That is far more difficult when somebody tells you that, okay, I have no budget, do what you want to do. I mean, in terms of cost, then you literally, you really have to think hard.
What role do you think sustainability has to play in your work? Can you bring it to the project even if the client is not asking for it?
No, we always do it, irrespective of the client asking. Sometimes when we tell the client, some clients say that, how does it make me a difference? Because let's say it's a developer, they are eventually going to sell their project. But I said, as long as there's no cost difference, it doesn't make you a difference, right? So let us do it this way. And I think 9.5 out of 10, you convince everyone. So you do whatever you do in a sustainable way. So there are a lot of things, people think sustainability is only about sustainable materials. It's not just that, it's also the way you design. Your building design, taking cognizance of the site, the sun direction in itself makes the building energy efficient. So there are ways in design to make your building energy efficient. So by that, it becomes sustainable.
Do you find it, if you have a local client, local, what I mean is, a non-big city client, do you find that you have to convince a client for, making them build with a local context in mind? Or are the aspirations only to ape a design that they have seen somewhere? And is there some work required with the client,
Yes,
in those scenarios?
That's a very interesting topic. So yes, everybody apparently wants to go in the same genre of one international look, and it takes a lot of convincing to get them to do something that is contextual. But I've seen that mostly they do understand.
From a building codes perspective, anything that you think can be changed, should be changed to make it easier for us to build?
Easier to build? They've been talking about one window clearance for the longest time, and it has yet not happened. And we need to get, I don't know how many, 23 different permissions for every building, from this department, that department, that department. And it's so daunting for every developer who wants to build something new that first you have to do this whole circuit, going here, going there, going there, going there.
Correct.
And all the nuisance of it, the time taken, the kind of investment that you do in land in Bombay, and then to keep waiting to get permissions for 6 months, the loss of interest on all of that.
Right.
So unnecessarily, the buildings are becoming more expensive, and finally the buyer is spending more money.
Correct.
It just doesn't make any sense. That is one. The second thing is, you see the whole of Bandra, Juhu, these are plots, majority are 500 to 700 square meter plots. They were all designed as bungalow schemes. I mean, literally the whole of Juhu is a grid which was designed as a villa scheme. And today each one of them is getting a building which is 9 stories, 12 stories, 14 stories. They're making 5 basements.
Right.
The road widths are the same. They're not going to change. How is that infrastructure going to be done?
is the award the final stamp on the project? Is it necessary? Is it just want to understand what is the process in your mind.
No, it's not. It's not the final step or anything. But you, of course, feel really good when you have won an award for something that you feel that you did nicely. It makes a lot of difference. But bigger than the award is when the person who is actually using the space comes back and says something good.
What's your favorite project, Sanjay, from what you've done so far?
Right now, we just finished a house called the Mirai House of Arches, and it's in Rajasthan. It's amazing the way it's come out, in the sense that it is sculptural. It responds to the climate of Rajasthan in this amazing way, where every room is opening into an interstitial, sheltered space. There is no heat gain in the building at all in the worst summer, and we've seen it. We've stood inside, experienced all that.
I'm asking you the same question another way. What would be your most favorite showcase project?
Then we did this a students' hostel, which actually is one of our best projects because it was done in 6 months. The building, ground plus 3, 800-room student hostel, about 250,000 square feet. Each one of these buildings is like a street, and it opens up, it closes. All of them are oriented towards the north. They got these bay windows which can be used in multiple ways. So a student can actually sit right on the bay window or just look out towards a large playground which is in the northern side. And these students, when I went back to shoot, I could see that literally the entire campus is just there. And 3 of these students came and told me that, this is our happening place because we just love being here. And we made that building in such a way that it fosters social interaction. There is the open auditorium steps which are protected, leading up from the canteen, going to the playroom, but looking out at the playground. So people are sitting and watching cricket matches from there. Somebody is strumming a guitar and everybody else sitting watching them. So he actually did a building that fosters social interaction, because of the way it's oriented. Even if it's 40 degrees outside, you will always have a full shadowed path, an open shadowed path to walk through. And people are sitting in the garden. I was shocked when you're taking photographs. It's 40 degrees outside. Students are sitting in the garden, in the shade. And it became something very interesting and exciting for the students of the entire campus.
And very gratifying.
So it was very, very satisfying.
What advice would you give young architects today?
I think the best advice I can give is to gain experience in every way that is possible. Which means A, you sketch and you learn. B, you go to sites as often as you can. And you have to make the time for it. The site is something that your office is working on, or it's something that is immaterial. You need to simply go to sites to understand what are the different kinds of foundations, how a basement's made. It'll just help you clear your thoughts. What happens when there's a double height volume? How does it make an impact difference? What is building orientation? You need to actually experience these things, not just read about it on social media or even in books. You have to go and experience these things. Today, everybody's in a hurry, Everybody wants information really fast.
Yeah.
They don't want to spend time for it. They think they've just seen the building like this. They've strolled it on their phone, which is so tiny that you've seen the building. You have not seen the building from anywhere, because no building can actually be seen end to end the way you see it on your phone. You can't. If you're standing in front of a building, there is only that much that you can see. And if you really need to see the whole building, you need to step back that much more. Can you even step back that much in reality to see the whole building? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Maybe there's a park opposite, so then you can go back and see the whole building. But otherwise, how would you? So you experience a building in parts, and then you walk through. Who's going to give you that walk in and sit down and look experience? You're not. And when you do that, you understand what spatial relationships are, what different kinds of volumes can do, how they feel, and then only you'll be able to incorporate them in your design.
Do you think young architects today have an advantage from the vantage point from which they are starting out? Where we are in terms of where architecture is at today in India? There is an advantage. How do you view their starting point?
There are a number of advantages that they have. there is information that is available so easily that we had to strive so hard to get. One. B, there are softwares that are making it so much easier to achieve the end result. The end result, not the beginning. The third thing is that when we had to create something different, we had to go out of our way to convince, and yet the client would not be convinced. It was a long struggle. Today, it's so much easier because there's already so much done that is different, a little more unique.
Your best, most admired structure in India, something that you really look up to, and similarly one outside India, international, something that inspires you.
One of these was a Jewish museum by Daniel Libeskind in Berlin. It just changes the way you thought about a building. I mean, who would have thought that you'd make a building which is all serpentine like this? And then as you go in, there is volume play. And it's insane. And the way the light comes in, many factors. There is a cinema complex made in Dresden by Coop Himmelblau, Adolf Brix. It is taking abstract to another level altogether. Then there's this office building done by Benisch and Benisch in Germany, and that building has got cubes flying out in all directions. It is the most unlike office building that you would have ever seen. It is amazing. So experience each one of these buildings was like an eye-opener. It was a learning process, and it actually changed the way you think, because then you see that, okay, space can be used like this also. And then these are modern structures, okay? But then there was this huge difference which happened when I went to Montenegro, because we were doing some projects there, and I stayed in this Sveti Stefan island, which is now the Aman Hotel, and it's just 40 rooms. It's built on this island is actually unreal, because you have to walk, no car goes in there. It's a little island which is a 100-meter walk away from the coastline into the water, and the island is a hill, and there are all these little, so every room is different. The restaurant is like an open cafe which is sitting on the topmost portion, the pool is another portion. Every time you walk from your room to the cafe or to the pool, you can take a different path, because there are so many paths. Then I found out that this hotel, it's so interesting. I said, like, what is the history? It's actually a 600-year-old village that was converted to a hotel. And the architects and the owners of the hotel decided that we will keep all the structures untouched. We will do minimal intervention and just convert it to the hotel.
Hence the experience that you
Yeah, so that's the whole experience of organic spaces and what they can do. Because just imagine, you go from here, then you go from there, and it's every time there's some revelation, there's some new plantation that you see, some new views that you see. So very exciting. I mean, that's what got me into this whole organic thing also, besides the Indian villages and the Indian old cities. It just goes to show how organic spaces can give you that much more drama, interest, perception, as compared to something that is, rectilinear, cuboid, plain, planned.
Any one aspiration that you have in terms of building something or creating something? Any one aspiration that you're working towards?
Not working towards, but you really want to do a building that helps the community and becomes a social gathering space on a very large scale. So basically, it's about creating spaces that are giving people that moment of joy when they come there to experience. Just for example, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, what it did for that city, the city was an industrial city. One building changed the whole social impact, changed the economy of the entire city. If one building could do that, just imagine. And even today it has like these thousands of visitors on a daily basis. There was no airport there were no hotels in Bilbao. All of this sprung up because of the kind of interest generated by that one building and by the number of visitors who wanted to visit it. So I'm not saying a museum, but I'm saying a building which offers spaces for the community, and it's actually like a city center kind of space where people can come and spend a day and feel good, because there's so much to do and there's such interesting ways that the building has allowed you to do that.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. You've been amazing.